Adequate public
Recording in
notice has been
progress.
given pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice having been posted at the board's office and website and emailed to the Department of State and to the newspapers of broad circulation within the state.
Thank you. And our next meeting, Carmen?
The next regular board meeting will be held on Wednesday, May 4th at 10 a.m. in the board's hearing room on the first floor at 44 South Clinton Avenue in Trenton.
Thank you. And let's make mention of the fact that the public is invited to come in person now to our meetings and see our new boardroom. You can also see our meetings via live stream, but it'll be good to see you coming to the meetings live, so to speak. So, and roll call, please.
Commissioner Holden.
Here.
Commissioner Solomon.
Here.
Commissioner Shivakula.
Here.
Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
President Friedelisto.
Yes. Again, I want to say good morning to everyone, and I would like to welcome you to our second quarterly public comment meeting of 2022. These meetings, as we've said before, are intended to increase the board's accessibility and transparency and give members of the public an opportunity to speak directly to the board's commissioners on important issues of public interest. Today's meeting is not subject specific, as our previous quarterly meetings have been. Comments and questions from the public are permitted on any topic except for contested matters that are pending before the board. You are welcome to raise general policy issues for the board's consideration. We ask speakers to keep their comments brief, and if you have detailed written statements, you can submit them to the board secretary and summarize them there. I ask that you keep in mind that there are other folks who would like to speak, and we have a hard stop at 11 o'clock, and so it's important to get to the point. Always able to transmit comments to the board secretary. I'd like to remind anyone listening today who may be behind on paying their utility bills, help is available. Reach out to your individual utility and see how they can help and what the state can provide for you. For details on assistance programs, you can call 211 to the state or visit nj.gov/BPU for details. Please note that speakers should avoid commenting on contested matters before the board, but are welcome to raise general policy issues. And again, please keep your comments to the point. No contested matters, because then you put the commissioners in a difficult position here, and so on. As a reminder, only pre-registered speakers will have the ability to speak and ask questions. We will not have a chat feature enabled and cannot accommodate anyone who didn't register to speak before the deadline. Members of the public who did not register will be able to watch via the live stream on YouTube, just like we have for our regular board meetings. While anyone who wishes to submit testimony is encouraged to do so, in these meetings, we are especially interested in hearing from people who we would not normally hear from. As you know, we have so many stakeholder meetings, and we'd like to hear from those people who don't regularly participate in those stakeholder meetings too. So we get different perspective and different ideas. Now is the time we get to hear from you. Do any of my colleagues have any comments they want to begin with? Okay, if not, Geraldine, would you please call the first registered speaker?
Sure. The first registered speaker is Eric Ford. You may now unmute yourself.
Good morning, commissioners. I really don't have any comments. I really don't have any comments really to say. Just want to thank you for all the hard work you guys are doing. I'm looking forward to hearing what others have to say today, but I don't want to take up too much time. I know there's a lot going on, but again, just want to commend you and the staff for everything you're doing. So thanks. That's it.
Well, thank you. That's a nice way to start off. We appreciate that.
Our next registered speaker is Fred Desanti. You can now unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. I guess I'm one that you do hear from frequently, so I'll be very brief. I just want to make two very quick observations, and there are issues that I think we ought to take a hard look at as quickly as possible. The first one involves the community solar program, which we know is very important for all of us. We are having a great amount of difficulty with subscriber eligibility and making sure that we can get people signed up. We really need to look at those regulations as soon as possible to try to loosen them, or a lot of those projects are just not going to come to fruition. So that's the first issue that I hope we can look at the earliest opportunity. The second issue, and I'll be very brief, is the issue of inflation and how it's impacting our business right now. As you know, it's raging at about 8%. It's a real problem, and our industry are really price takers. There's nothing we can do to raise prices in the face of inflation. We are subject to the price of electricity, which, as you know, we can't change, and also from the incentives that are provided by the board through the regulatory process. Those are fixed, and as prices increase for labor, material, delivery, and everything else, we're stuck. So we hope that the board and staff can take a look at the numbers that we have right now in the incentive program and take into account the inflationary impacts. We think it's very, very important. And you'll be seeing me a lot more, so I will leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. Next, Geraldine.
Our next registered speaker is Caitlin Hollinger. You may now unmute yourself.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Caitlin Hollinger, and I'm the policy manager at Blue Wave, which is a dual-use community solar and energy storage developer based in Boston, Mass. Thanks so much for taking the time today and for all the work you all have been doing to establish New Jersey as a leader in the clean energy transition. I'm just going to share some very brief comments regarding the board's dual-use pilot program, which is currently under development. Blue Wave, our farmers, our landowners, as well as our research partners are excitedly anticipating the public process coming up, which will inform the program structure, incentives, and guidelines. We're particularly eager to understand how the dual-use pilot program will interact with the community solar permanent program, which will ensure maximum value for every ratepayer dollar invested in these projects. So any information you can share about that timing is much appreciated. We've also been coordinating with others in the solar industry, environmental and conservation groups in New Jersey, and of course the farming community in anticipation of this robust stakeholder proceeding. Blue Wave and all of our partners stand at the ready to assist you all with your decision-making about dual use, and we're all happy to provide the technical expertise or share our on-the-ground experience with dual use in other states. Farmers across the state are ready to implement dual use, so it's really important that we maintain the momentum of these conversations with the stakeholder process as soon as possible. So again, thanks so much for your thoughtful consideration and your time today. Just please feel free to reach out to me with any questions.
Thank you, Caitlin. And in reference to your first inquiry, please feel free to reach out to our Clean Energy Division and speak with Kelly Moy and to try to clarify some of the questions that you may have. So don't hesitate to do that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for calling in. Who's next, Geraldine?
Next registered speaker is Scott Elias. You may now unmute yourself.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, hi, my name is Scott Elias. I'm the director of Mid-Atlantic State Affairs for the Solar Energy Industries Association. I wanted to start off by saying that SIA truly appreciates the hard work from the BPU and staff, between launching the SUSI program, engaging in a grid modernization and interconnection reform proceeding, putting together the groundwork for the CSI program, dual use program, and permanent community solar program. There's obviously a lot of activity and a lot of work going on. So we really do appreciate that. Today, I wanted to just focus my comments on bringing attention to a few headwinds facing the solar industry to make sure that you're all aware of some of the things that are impacting our ability to keep building projects in New Jersey and across the country. Every quarter, SIA and Wood Mackenzie releases the U.S. Solar Market Insight Report, and our 2021 year in review report from just last month demonstrated that, unfortunately, due to the geopolitical trends we're seeing, PV solar system prices are actually up across all market segments with no relief in sight. And unfortunately, Wood Mac analysts don't see system prices getting back down to 2020 levels until 2025. And as you might have seen in the news in recent days, the Commerce Department just announced that it was initiating a solar anti-circumvention investigation into the imports of solar goods from Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And I wanted to clarify why my CEO from SIA has called this the most serious crisis we face in our collective history. 84% of all U.S. solar module imports come from the 4 countries impacted by this investigation. So this is already needlessly causing serious harm to the industry, including right now and right here in New Jersey. And while obviously this isn't something that the New Jersey BPU is in control of, I wanted to make sure you all understood that as a practical matter, no importer of record is going to bring solar cells or panels into the US and risk the imposition of a retroactive 50 to 250% duty. And similarly, solar customers do not have the capacity to absorb these massive costs, and planned projects are unfortunately not going to be moving forward. While we obviously support expanding domestic solar manufacturing, building this capacity is going to take time and the right policy framework. And right now, unfortunately, the US just can't produce enough solar panels domestically to meet the amount of demand that we have. So, we have done a survey on this, and unfortunately from our members, we're hearing that nearly 75% of more than the 250 responding solar companies have been notified by their suppliers that solar panel shipments to the US are either going to stop or be delayed until business certainty returns. Structurally, what's going to happen here is that by late August, the Commerce Department is expected to reach a preliminary decision on whether to proceed with a full investigation. But the best option for achieving New Jersey's climate goals and solar goals is going to be if the Commerce Department rules against tariffs immediately. So again, I mentioned this not because you all have the ability to change this, but so that you are aware of some of the additional headwinds and uncertainty our industry faces and the potential consequences this may have on our collective ability to achieve New Jersey's ambitious clean energy goals, as well as the ability for companies to be able to unfortunately meet their deadlines for the TI program or for the SUSI program. So I'm planning to follow up with staff with more details on this, as well as more information on what we at SIA are doing to seek an expedited preliminary determination on this misguided petition, but did want you to know how big of a deal this trade case is for the solar industry. So thank you very much, and thank you for your leadership.
And Scott, thank you for filling us in on that. It's much appreciated.
Can we ask a question of Scott?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about, the oil and gas industry stepping up production on there. And I just wondered, what efforts have there been within the solar community to bring some of this construction to, our shores rather than relying on these foreign. Maybe you can give us a
yeah. So we're working actively. So a lot of the efforts are unfortunately tied to some of the federal legislation that's stalled, but there's certain incentives that are being considered as part of Build Back Better or part of the overall, whatever that's going to be called, federal legislation that would incentivize basically like an investment tax credit for domestic production of the various elements that go within the solar manufacturing. It's broader than that on the federal side. But what we're seeing is that unfortunately tariffs aren't the way to encourage domestic manufacturing. We need industrial policy. And that's not something that, New Jersey can do. It's something we kind of really need the federal government to do. So we're working hard on that. And I can put in touch our federal team that's working on that as well, if you all have further questions.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it sounds like some of the same issues, regardless of the generation type that we're hearing across the board. So, certainly understand. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Scott? Great, thank you, Scott. Geraldine?
Our last registered speaker has not joined the meeting, so that concludes our public comments section.
Okay. Said at the beginning of the session that we had a hard stop at 11. All I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, is the fact that it was advertised for 10 o'clock, correct? With no end time. You're on mute there, Michael, I think. No, we still can't hear you. If I was correct, shake. Okay. For those who can't see Michael, he said I was correct. Okay. Well, I want to thank those who signed up to speak, and I want to give you one more opportunity, those who did sign up to speak, if you wanted to say anything additional. We are always interested in hearing from you all who are part of the industry or have an interest in the industry.
Sure. If you like, I could get a little bit deeper into the issue of eligibility and the community solar issues that we're having right now. If
Sure.
you'd like, if that would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay. As you know, a lot of our companies are out and they actually hold meetings in some of the areas where there's a significant portion of LMI folks that reside. And there's a lot of interest at the beginning of those meetings. People look at this and say, wow, I can get a discount. This is something that'll really work for me. And then at the close of the meeting, when we start looking at, providing some of the documentation, all of a sudden people start to become very seized up, and there's a real reluctance to get involved with providing information about income levels and the like. And that's expected. And it also occurs on the websites when we try to do it there as well. So there's a couple of things in there that we think would be helpful. Number one, right now, the census blocks that we use require an 80% coverage. And if we can get that down to 50, it would give us a lot more flexibility in some of these areas to get more people involved. So that would be number one. I know a second issue on self-attestation is one that is problematic because it can certainly introduce fraud into this area. But having someone sign off and check a block and say, listen, I qualify, I know I qualify, and signing off on that is something that would really ease this and really introduce a lot more people that are qualified from coming forward. For the level of discount that's being provided and the amount of money involved, I just don't see how many people would be really interested in getting involved in fraudulent representations. So that's number two. A third issue, which has come up at some of our meetings, involves the Universal Service Fund and the problem with that. As you know, the Universal Service Fund is very important in the state. And right now, the eligibility for that requires that your electric and or gas bill, separately or together, is more than 2% of your income. So one of the questions we get out there is, if I'm right now receiving Universal Service Fund, I qualify because more than 2% of my income is related to electric costs. And now if I join up with a community solar program and I receive a discount, and that discount brings me down below the 2% level, I now am not qualified through the Universal Service Fund. And so it becomes, you know, a situation where people have to make a decision as to whether or not they want universal service fund, which in most cases or many cases can be more than the discount associated with community solar. So I think we've got to resolve that issue as well and provide that exemption. Open it up also to automatically for folks that are on Medicaid, which right now is not in the queue. We really do need help with this. We're not having, you know, difficulty with, you know, site selection or the development of the projects, but when it comes down to the 51% eligibility requirement, it's really becoming a problem. We had a great company working with us in Neighborhood Sun, and they have recently left and said, you know, we just can't get this done for people. So I didn't want to put, you know, too much detail on this, but this is something that we hope we can look at and work together to resolve, because this is an important program for people. You know, we only have about 27 megawatts in the ground right now, even though there's about 250 megawatts that have been approved. And so it would be helpful if we could do this. Thanks.
Thanks for that information, Fred.
Sure.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
If I could just follow up on Fred's comments. I had been under the impression that with regard to eligibility for community solar, we were trying to simplify the process by relying on other surrogate measures, such as eligibility for other federal or state programs. And, you know, I had been led to believe that that was going to simplify the process. So I'm wondering whether staff can get back to us and just respond to Fred's concerns.
Okay, if we certainly we can after the meeting, if staff can fill the commissioners in on that and then get back to Fred, that would be fine.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, on behalf of the board, I again want to thank you and thank today's presenters. We always learn something new, and in some cases, a lot of things new that help us in helping to formulate policy. And that's really the reason, one of the reasons anyway, for these quarterly meetings. We find them very productive. We generally get information that sometimes is new to us, and we certainly appreciate that. And we appreciate those who participated for giving of their time to help to educate us. If anyone who's listened to this wishes to submit comments after the meeting, they may do so via the board secretary at board.secretary@bpu.nj.gov. I will repeat that. board.secretary@bpu.nj.gov. If anyone wishes to submit written comments, we are always anxious to receive those written comments. The deadline to submit written comments is 5 p.m. on Monday, April 18th. Please follow us on Twitter and Facebook at NJBPU. You can also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So follow our activities, go to our website, see what the board is doing, because what we do on a daily basis is not only in the clean energy arena, which is one of our primary responsibilities, but we're also the regulatory body over investor-owned utilities here in the state of New Jersey. So we have a large and important portfolio that affects every New Jerseyan every single day. So we want you to be aware of what we're doing, and we want to be as transparent as we possibly can. Do any of my colleagues have any closing remarks? If there are no other items, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And thank you again for listening to us today. And we look forward to seeing you soon.